Welcome to the Market Genius AI podcast. This is our services edition of the show, where we chat with go-to-market service providers about their offerings, trends they're seeing, tools they're implementing, and how they help go-to-market teams be successful.
In this episode, our guests are Jonathan Burg, the Senior Vice President of Revenue, and Jacque Turbett, Director of Revenue Operations at New Breed. It's great to have you on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome to you both. Jonathan, always nice to have an old partner on here, and Jacque, I'm super excited to learn a little bit more about you today.
Same.
Let's just dive right in. Give us the elevator pitch about what New Breed is and does.
All right. So, Jacque, can I take it away?
Yes, of course, always.
All
You're the
right.
sales guy.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Here we go. So, New Breed is HubSpot's top solutions partner, and we help organizations build the right infrastructure and strategic foundation against their go-to-market strategy and their goals. Then we apply tech-enabled services to help grow on top of that infrastructure. So things like account-based marketing, sales productivity, etc., right? And then we utilize AI, and we can be an extension of an organization's team to really help them scale. So we have a very deep focus on HubSpot. So if an organization is trying to get the most out of HubSpot, if an organization is migrating to HubSpot from a different system, we really help them configure that and build that foundation. We also have strategic partners in the ecosystem, right? So we're focused on the HubSpot ecosystem. So companies like Rollworks and other ABM providers, as well as other organizations within the CPQ space. If there's capabilities that need to extend beyond HubSpot's capabilities, we can help to drive those integrations and build that foundation. So yeah, that's New Breed.
And the company's been around for 16 years, I believe, when Patrick started. I'm sure I know both of you have only been there for 2 to 3 years, but what is kind of the backstory of it, and when did it pivot to HubSpot? How did it become what it is today?
Traditionally, the organization started off as a marketing agency and really helping companies to do websites and other marketing tactics. There is a little bit of like a HubSpot history here in Vermont. So Brian Halligan graduated from the University of Vermont. So there was always like this like Vermont-Boston connection. And Patrick very early on saw this opportunity with HubSpot in the very early days. So being one of the first HubSpot solution partners identified that the inbound movement was something that can genuinely make an impact for organizations. And that's always been the focus. Like, how can companies invest in go-to-market strategies that are going to help them grow, right? Like, and then what tools, what foundational infrastructure do you need to get that done? So very early on, it was let's help organizations utilize inbound methodologies to grow, and you need HubSpot in order to get that done. So going from a marketing agency, building some best-in-class amazing websites and marketing tools to really an organization who can bring HubSpot into your environment and grow on top of that. And then with every sort of innovation and evolution of the HubSpot platform, from a really great blogging tool to an amazing marketing automation platform to having an integrated sales productivity solution into a CRM, now a customer platform and an AI-driven solution that's helping companies scale, right? Really being sort of at the frontier of all of those. So there's been a lot of firsts in all of that.
Yeah, New Breed kind of got to grow up alongside HubSpot, which is nice. What is the skiing overlap of HubSpot and New Breed
The
customers? Yeah, I feel like the Boston Vermont connection has to be ski related.
there's a tremendous amount. So the CMO skis in Vermont often. New Breed once had a summit where they did a bunch of training at the company headquarters and brought in a whole bunch of people from HubSpot to help facilitate that training.
Yeah.
There was a big ski activity at that point. So yeah, it's pretty deep. And I'm a big skier myself, and on any given day I see both HubSpotters as well as a ton of new breeders on the slopes on the weekend.
Of
So,
course, of
yeah.
course. It's rare that I have a fellow Vermonter on, so if I can sneak in skiing to this podcast, I would like to have a whole podcast just about skiing, so I gotta get it in when I can.
Let's do it, Lizzie.
So Jackie, switching over to you for a minute, I'd love to hear you have like a little bit of a diverse background, which is great. I saw legal assistant, customer success, technical support, operations. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and what brought you to New Breed.
I got my bachelor's degree in political science because I eventually wanted to go and be a lawyer and a judge, but I liked campaigns. Well, so I thought. So I ran two. They were actually surprisingly successful, but I literally hated it. So I'm like the poster child for you go to college for the thing that you think you're going to do for the rest of your life, and you actually hate it. So I quickly just took a job in anything I could, which was a call center for a tech software. Answered phones forever, realized I actually like this software thing, and also still like the services side. So my team is cool in RevOps because they all come from different backgrounds, but I'm one of the few that actually comes from the CSM / like service side.
Yeah.
So I was the one that always had the operations hat that I wore at companies, but I never had the title. So I would work as a CSM, but also maintain our HubSpot instance, or like Infusionsoft, if you remember that before it was bought by Keep. I used to run those. Active Campaigns, Salesforce, unfortunately. And then I realized I didn't want to convince companies to love HubSpot as much as I did anymore. So I literally was like, I'm going to go work for a HubSpot partner. And I want to work for the best HubSpot partner because why wouldn't you want to work for the best one? So I looked them up in the directory and I applied to the open RevOps manager position. At the time, I had like 4 years of people management experience and done a bunch of operations. And I was like, I can do this. Let's go. Like, I do RevOps. I have people management. I want to work at the best HubSpot partner.
Yeah.
And my anniversary is 3 years next week. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been great. Yeah.
Having that customer success background, I think or sales background or whatever background as a revenue ops manager that you're actually helping that team is always beneficial.
Yeah. I fully agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jonathan, you obviously bring a wealth of, demand gen and marketing background, some sales background as well. Would love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you ended up joining New Breed.
My background prior to the world of B2B technology, demand gen, sales, etc., was in sports psychology and performance psychology. And I love it. I also did get an MBA at some point, and I will say that my education in very early days in sports psychology is what I use most in my practice, which is really fascinating and interesting.
In terms of like leadership,
attentional focus, and quite frankly, I think particularly in the environment that we're all in, you've got to be curious, you've got to be gritty, and you've got to stay focused. And there's a lot of sort of foundational elements. In fact, I was just recently presenting on the G2 AI in Action Roadshow, and Tim Sanders talked about 10,000 hour rule in the context of AI. And that was based on sports psychology research by Anders Ericsson a while ago. So really, really interesting context there. But yeah, so transitioned into B2B technology and didn't look back. I absolutely loved it. Was one of those sort of like demand gen operations people who just like loved technology. Kind of started my career when intent data was coming onto the scene, cloud computing, like Salesforce was disrupting everything. It was the early days of marketing automation and thinking through like, how can we use these tools? How can we use this data to actually reach buyers and give them the information they need to make the best decisions? So kind of had a path there into a CMO position, and that was the first time I used HubSpot, funny enough.
Oh, interesting.
And I had to make a call. I was like, all right, am I going to do a whole tech infrastructure project, or am I going to really lean into like the go-to-market message and our strategy for how we're going to grow in different segments, et cetera, and really invest in the team? And it was clear that that was like the route to go. And I thought, all right, I'm going to learn how we can like sort of utilize HubSpot to support a rather complex global operation. And I was a customer of New Breed's.
Oh, okay.
So they helped me actually get that done. massive success story. And then had a couple of other C-level positions. And in each one, HubSpot was the tool that we were standardized on. And I realized just the power of the integration and the scalability. And, when I moved to Vermont, my wife's an archaeologist and works at the university here. One thing led to another and the stars aligned and here I am.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, and I think revisiting the sports psychology side of it, even just playing sports and like how to be part of a team, how to collaborate, how to practice things, how to go and perform when you need to. There's a ton of overlap there. Do you
yeah.
think you'll ever go back?
I think I am back, right? I think the combination of a leadership position, the combination of having a child, and also just I'm much more active within youth sports now than I had
Yeah.
been a little bit. So I consider myself back. I'm brushing up on all my research though. That's a lot of science has been had in the times that I did it a long time ago.
Yes, especially around psychology, many things, but
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a very cool background and how you ended up there. So you guys have both been there for a couple of years. I'd love to learn a little bit about how New Breed has focused on scaling. Obviously, you've scaled alongside HubSpot, but what has been the focus last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, really the focus has been on integrating technology into how we can be faster, deeper, and better for our customers. So tech-enabled services is sort of a category in and of itself, and we really started investing in that a long time ago. So how can we continue to evolve and enhance the playbooks that we customize and we apply in a unique way for all of our customers? But how can we do it better, faster, and deliver higher value to our customers through technology? Today, that's really sort of AI, right? So that's one big one. The other really big one is focus, right? So focusing on the HubSpot ecosystem and focusing on the go-to-market strategies that organizations are investing in most. I stood on stage last year and I said inbound is dead, right? So we really created a big focus in taking a much more buying committee account-based approach and integrating data across systems so that you can do that really, really well. And that sort of helped. And then people and partners, right? Like focusing on our culture, focusing on our people, right? I've worked for a lot of organizations and I can confidently say New Breed's one of the best that I've worked for. And this ecosystem that we work within with HubSpot sort of leading the way for us in terms of innovation and sort of culture. It's fantastic. So I think people and the ecosystem is just been really helpful for us to scale as well. Jacque, any thoughts on that?
You see a lot of partners try and be really wide in terms of like what they'll service and things like that. And sure, you can do it at a surface level, right? You can implement HubSpot for just about anything. But if you want to get really, deep down into those best practices and really know what you're talking about and help your clients scale and grow, you need to niche down. You need to be really focused on like what your offerings are and
Hmm.
what you're going to focus on in terms of companies as your clientele.
And be an expert in that niche. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. The HubSpot culture is a little bit infectious to the ecosystem they've created of partnering and working together and collaborating and like helping the tide rise all ships type of a thing. So
100%.
we
Yeah.
also I also like working in the HubSpot ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. We were at the Spotlight event down in New York, and there was not many solutions partners there, but the ones that were, right, they were sort of top elite solutions partners, and it was like seeing old friends. And yeah, we all sort of compete in the ecosystem, but we know each other's strengths, and it's working to have all ships rise.
Yeah.
So
And so you obviously have probably some preferred partners that you like to work with. I want to dig into a little bit about how you balance, your sales strategy,
Hmm.
your priorities with your clients' business goals and what they're trying to do, and when do those come in conflict, and how do you work through that?
Yeah, everything always starts with challenges and target outcomes. So right away, like the moment we start interacting with an organization, we want to go deep into learning what's your business model? How do you make money? What is your product? What does that competitive landscape look like? what are the things that are holding you back? Like, why are you reaching out? And then what are the outcomes and what does good look like? What is the environment that you're trying to achieve? And when you can really pull those things together, combined with sort of an analysis of the tech infrastructure, and we can start aligning the technology, the process, and then the growth programs together, that's when we can really prioritize, great, this is how we can support you best to achieve those goals. And there are some instances where we'll come together as a team very early on, by the way, and make a decision like we're not going to be able to help this organization as much as this other recommendation. And then we will make that recommendation because during our sales process, we care about one thing, delivering value. So it's speed to value. And then once we align on a partnership, it's speed to impact. And that drives everything. And it makes decision making quite easy for us in terms of how we're going to get that done. I think the other you talked about partnerships, like yeah, like we could have many partnerships, and Lizzie, we could probably have an entire podcast on this, but we do focus, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to focus in order to get the most out of those and create a win-win for the customers.
It's going back to being an expert, right? If you're trying
Yeah,
to use 6 ABM platforms, you're never going to become an expert at any of them. So
exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. When can companies like start to use you? When would you start to be impactful, and what's your broader ICP look like?
It's various stages. So if an organization is really just getting started and implementing HubSpot, we can certainly help them. We have very specific types of packages that are geared towards more rapid onboarding. However, when an organization is really looking to make a technology or go to market evolution and really looking to drive scale, like that's where New Breed really sort of like packs the biggest punch, right? Understanding, right? Like what are the integrations? How can we get your data aligned? How can we get your systems aligned? And then how can that enable your teams and your growth programs in order to really drive scale and grow? I would say that's like a big differentiator. And some of the things and some of the work that I've seen Jacque and team deliver, like I'm just so blown away by it. Like y'all impress me so much every single day when I look at these customer case studies on how we build tech and scale. So
Assuming you've been busy over the last few years with all of the go-to-market transformations that we've seen.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's
Just a
to say the
little.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just before we move into market trends, who do you typically compete with? It sounds like you have some good frenemies of like people you partner with and potentially compete with, but what does that look like, and how do you differentiate?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think like the number one competition that we have is no decision, right? And
Status
and in
quo. Yeah.
status quo. And it's amazing to me sometimes where I see organizations choose status quo when they've clearly articulated the challenges and what the future can look like and what the opportunities are, but it happens often, right? So status quo and then internal teams. And sometimes investing in your internal team is a great choice and a great option.
Yep.
And those are sometimes a recommendation that we'll make. In fact, there are periods of time where we're working with an organization and we know that if they actually invested internally, they would get even more out of a solutions partner, right? And
Yep.
we'll make that recommendation as well. And then if you go to the HubSpot solutions directory and just sort of look at like the elite partners that are listed, those of course are sort of in the mix. We all have a pretty good sense of where we fit and the industries that we focus on and understand when to invest into processes and RFPs and cycles and when not to,
Yep.
due to that understanding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's shift over to market trends.
Yeah.
Instead,
So let's talk about the state of HubSpot and the specific data that you would call out as a critical ongoing trends in that report. What is your take on that?
yeah, so we started a few years ago and we decided that it was kind of like our duty almost. Like we have this unique insight. We get to work with so many partners. We get to work with so many people at HubSpot. We have customers that are very active in the community. And so we survey a couple of thousand revenue leaders across marketing, sales, customer success, operations, and this year finance. across multiple CRMs. So across various different CRMs, so we could look at some comparisons across the globe and understand like what are the best doing, what are the biggest challenges, what are the biggest hurdles. Where we got the data back like only a few weeks ago. So we always launch this at HubSpot. So I'm allowed to talk about high level trends and a couple of key data points. So one thing that we're finding this year is that integration is absolutely key. So integration, data being very clean and flowing through systems appropriately is absolutely critical. Another big trend that we are seeing is that marketing is finally not focused on MQLs. Profitability and pipeline creation and scalability is moving up the ranks in terms of prioritization from a focus from the marketing organization, which is really fantastic. Security and trust is very important for finance and sales. So that's another big trend. And then only 68% of respondents said that they are not mature and ready for autonomous AI and agentic AI. Yet it's one of the biggest investments, and it's an indicator of organizations reaching their revenue targets and outperforming others. So we're seeing sort of like this interesting gap, and we're really digging into that data deep right now. And what does that mean and some of the dynamics? So excited for the report to come out to share more in that lens.
So just out of curiosity, you said 63%.
68.
Yes, 68%.
68% of these teams are claiming, or your customers are claiming that they're not ready to implement AI and agent AI.
Yeah, not necessarily our customers, like thousands of people across HubSpot and other CRMs say that they don't feel prepared to use agentic AI in a meaningful way yet.
Right. So I know you said this is preliminary finding and you can't talk too much about this because you're still investigating, digging in, but let's hypothesize a little bit here, right? So out of curiosity as well, I'm thinking, what do you think are the reasons why these organizations are saying that?
I think it's hot off the presses, right? Like we're all figuring out together. So I think that's the most obvious answer. I think the other sort of analysis is like companies are not taking the step back and thinking through what are the primary use cases that this technology can apply to, right? And that's just foundational. So one of the things that we're recommending and we're seeing and collaborating with companies is sort of remapping that customer journey, but in the context of how organizations are utilizing AI summaries, private communities, peer review sites, etc. And then also, how can we map AI agents and practically team members to help us reach those customers in a more efficient, effective, and personalized way to do so? And then all of a sudden, that makes it much more clear and easier to map how are we going to use agentic AI in our market. I think the other big thing that's holding us back, and Jackie can talk about this a bit, is data. So
Yeah. We work with so many clients that come to us literally and they're like, so we implemented HubSpot ourselves. We gave everyone at our 30-person company super admin access. And now we have 10 state properties and our lead routing doesn't work. We're like, oh, well, no duh. So it is a lot of the actual data behind it too. You can use AI before your data is clean for sure. That's what we're trying to teach our clients. Like,
Can help solve that.
yes, that too. But it's like, don't make this this first, then this. They can both happen at the same time. But yes, data. Everyone gets so scared of their data not being clean, which usually it's not. Most companies out there, their data is not fully clean. So then they're terrified to start to use AI and depend on the insights to do anything. It's definitely a big hurdle.
First, the data not being clean when humans are processing it. So that would have been a similar thing or another automation tool. Yeah, I think about it too as like, yes, hot off the press. We haven't minimized the amount of tools we expect revenue operations teams to implement or sales teams to use. We've added on top of those tools with AI. And we haven't necessarily, one, there's not experts. Like, it's not like there's been people working with these AI tools for 10 years. They have companies like yourselves can get really good at that and help, but there's not a ton of experts out there that can come in and clean things up. And you're asking people to learn it on top of their jobs. It's almost like there needs to be like specific AI roles in companies, or they need to work with a partner. Yeah.
Totally. Lizzie, you just reminded me of another stat. All right, I got to talk quietly or else the team's going to come find me and tell me to stop talking.
This won't come out for a little bit. You'll be good.
But the RevOps, their number one challenge that they have is integrating AI into sales processes and business processes. So that's right to your point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have this theory that actually AI for a short period of time, maybe a little bit longer, might make the decision making on implementing AI into this organization even worse. So what I mean by that, if every single legacy system, including the CRM, is implementing some form of AI and has its own prompt and it has its own way of guiding the user to the conclusion, and we multiply this by a few, I think this is just chaos in the organization. You have someone who's in marketing and is using AI with their own legacy systems, right, to make a decision. Then you have sellers that are using few applications. They're going to use this in each of these systems. And then suddenly somebody in customer success, and then you have a RevOps. It's putting this together is impossible.
Yeah.
We're dealing here with something that is just simply mission impossible. Which gets me to another point. The only place where all of that could live is a CRM. Could have one place, all of that data comes in, and in some form of structure, like Jacque said, right? Like there has to be some connectivity between them. There has to be some logic and method behind when all of that is stored in the CRM, and then you have these agents that start feeding each of these organizations from the CRM. So where are we on that front is my question for you guys.
I think it started last year, right? Or a few years ago. I think we're definitely sort of like moving in that process of consolidation. I also feel as though like this year we surveyed the finance leaders as well. And that was definitely something that came up as of interest, particularly as it related to AI strategy. So I think there's some key benefits to it for organizations to drive efficiency and scale. Just in where we sit, we have more and more companies coming to us and talking to us about multi-hubs for just the reason that you're highlighting here, Dimitri. So I think it's happening, probably not happening as fast as sort of we see it because we're sort of at the center of it, but I'm definitely seeing a trend in that direction.
Yeah, you talked about integrations a little bit earlier. Eventually, I think the AI agents are going to have to integrate. And there's some, model context protocol, and Anthropic has that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys involved in any of that yet? Are you seeing it happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, and yes, in the context of how we support and help organizations, right? So one of the things that we've always done is we've really worked hard to invest in extending the capabilities and applying those capabilities appropriately for the HubSpot ecosystem. So like rewind 4 or 5 years ago, we launched Distributely, which was an app in the marketplace that helped with complex routing of objects. Leads are the prime contacts, and leads are the primary recipient of that capability, right? So today, now we're looking at, we have playbooks and configurations that have been developed for specific industries and use cases for many, many years, right? And those need to be tailored for an organization's specific use case. But there's a lot that we understand. And one of the things that we're investigating and looking at is how can we utilize some of those MCP capabilities and other agentic approaches to provide organizations with the capability to access those in a very fast way, right? So I think when we look at the future of solution and service providers in the ecosystem, how can they pull these disparate systems together, utilizing these technologies to create the most optimal configuration and then activate against it? So you kind of hit it square on the head in some of the things that we're looking at.
Yeah, I forgot you guys go and build apps too. That is as convenient for a solutions company, especially in this world today.
Yes, and I think when we talked about scale earlier, it's been one of the critical reasons why New Breed has been able to stay ahead and grow and meet customers where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a gap in the market, you can go and build a tool or an app that helps close that gap if no one else is doing it, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah, that is definitely convenient approach. I have a question, I think, regarding what you just said or you alluded to. Do you think that there's ongoing trend in the services like yours where everything is shifting towards the data management in the first place as an offering to be foundational for everything else before you even start engaging with these accounts, right? Of course, there are some small accounts that have some tactical questions or problems that can be solved. I get it, but I think as a critical element of your offering, the data management comes first. So you need to build that infrastructure, ensuring that all of that is having some level of connectivity before you start building all the other tactical things in a very optimized and efficient way. Do you think that is a trend, or that will be a trend in the future in your category?
It's kind of already baked in for what we do. The team would be remiss if I didn't talk about the amount of audits they have to do in a given week just within CRMs. So then they can get an idea of like, what does their data management look like? How are automations involved? How many like lists and forms and all of this kind of stuff have you already created that's flowing information into the system as well as other integrations? It's kind of at the core of what we do without us actually being like, here is our data management service offering, because it does, like you said, really go into everything else that we have to do. So it's kind of already there. We just don't really like call it out as like a particular thing.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it feels like when you go to the customer, you say, "Hey, you need to just implement this whole data management system." They, oh, it's gonna be a long journey here, right? Don't you feel like they're gonna get scared a little bit, and that might just put you away from the customer or that prospect for another 12, 18 months?
Yeah, I think it happens, but you identify areas for quick wins as well, right? And really build that value and try to make it not a scary thing and more of an approachable journey that is critical for the foundation for growth. If you go back to like the first couple of seconds when I sort of talked about what Newbury does, it's that build, grow, scale. And really build is absolutely key, but we'll assess, and some organizations have a beautiful foundation and we're like, that's great, like here's some suggestions on how we can refine it, but like let's stay focused on really this growth challenge and outcome that you're looking to achieve, and that really helps. But if an organization is like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, like we really like it's going to take so long, like sometimes that's the best thing for us to do, is to highlight that. And that's okay, because that is our role. And if we're there to support them, amazing. If not, and we highlight that it's something that they've got to get done, we've helped them on their journey.
So, what are the other go-to-market services that you see will dominate the future of that category?
Outside of AI.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to avoid AI, I
I know.
think. But what are kind of these future trends that you see will dominate the go-to-market?
Not just sort of data infrastructure and building out that like technical foundation. I think being able to meet buyers where they are and utilize signals that aren't just found within your database, but behavioral signals that you can combine and enrich your first party data with to really drive personalization and context is absolutely key. I think there's going to be a lot more that organizations can do by investing in their first party data and enriching it with more granular signals that really mean something to their buying committees. is going to be big. When you look at Forrester and you look at a lot of the other analysts, and you also look at the direction of HubSpot and some of these other CRMs, rather than focusing on one individual, right? Like one publishing a piece of content for one persona to fill out a form to put them into a rather structured sequence that is semi-personalized, like it's inefficient, right? There's not a lot of efficiency, and we just all expect more in our own buying experiences. So utilizing data, utilizing modern technology to create a more efficient, real-time, and personalized experience for buyers is another really big trend that I see. And that's across the whole stack. That's across content creation, that's across content distribution, it's across how we reach out to, follow up, and create really wonderful experiences through AI as well as humans. And the irony of it is I do think human interactions are going to be prioritized in this period of time. If you can really reach out and be very human at the right time and have AI help you do that, I think that's going to really help brands stand out as well.
I like how you described this. Many people describe this as a more endemic process where you acquire some magical platform that will answer all these things, will provide you all these answers for these questions. But the way you're describing it is it's going to be company by company work that needs to be done with the layered data.
Yeah.
That you're going to go vertically through and just to find the best information that can create a personalized experience, right? Because every product will be different that you're selling at the company. So that connects us with the other question and answer you provided, right? About the data management. It will be a fundamental element, and that's probably going to be part of the architecture.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah.
Right now we ask the seller to close that gap of like what we're providing them with, understand the context of the human, and fit it appropriately based on all the knowledge you have. I think what AI does well is it helps the human do that quicker and get access to data. But if you want to use the AI as an SDR tool, you have to give it all of that context. There's no human there to cover that gap. So it's like that helps both sides. It hopefully helps the seller, and then because you have to do it for the AI.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think it's this balance of like, I think it all comes down to like, how does your unique buyer want to buy, right? Like, where do they go to learn? How do they digest information? How do they use AI to digest information, right? And then also too, like, how do they want to interact with your brand? How do they want to interact with your products? Some products and some buyers, it's like completely self-service, and they're going to absolutely love not having to talk to people and leveraging AI agents to get everything that they want. Great, lean into that. Make that the most amazing experience possible. There's other purchases. They might not even be that big, but they might be really big to that individual and that buying committee because it's more of an emotional and an impact on somebody's like personal brand. Well, you're going to want to ramp up that human experience, but how can you utilize AI capabilities and data to be talking to the right people at the right time? And I think understanding your buyer and how they want to interact with you, that's never going to go away. That is a foundation of go to market. And that's where like I like to advise organizations, take the step back, start there, and then let's think about how we can create this infrastructure to make that better than ever before.
I've never heard it explained that way, and I like it, like the more emotional buy, and I think that is true in many cases.
it's a very nice way to say somebody's ego.
That's too
Yeah.
much.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's dive into some use cases. I had a million questions about AI use cases. I know you're going to share some of that, and then some HubSpot ones as well. Jackie, take us away.
Yeah. So ABM is becoming big again. Everybody's like, ABM is the new hot thing, which might drive me the most insane because it's not. ABM has been around forever. But again, people tried other things. They might not have worked. They're also starting to realize, like we just talked about, every buy is very emotional. So there's a whole buying committee. Like, it's not like this one-on-one salesperson with the buyer on the other side anymore. There's multiple people in those discovery and proposal calls. There's upwards of 10 people. And like Jonathan is saying, you have to be able to figure out how to speak to each of them, but also with the right content all at once, because you can't have so many discovery and proposal calls to make sure that you get all of that information to your prospect at the right time. So you have to make sure that you individualize it, but keep it all together. So I'm going to show you how we do some things inside of HubSpot and build some things out for some of our ABM focused clients to make it a little bit easier for them. Quite a few of them are not quite on the agent route yet, unfortunately, but I'm going to show you what's cool about some of that. And then how HubSpot's actually starting to do some AI things themselves to help with like insights and all of that. So this is a feature that you can unlock inside of HubSpot, which is target accounts. These are just the specific companies that you want to go after to become your prospects. There's a bunch of different ways you can set these up, but this is the main thing that you can really get you going to get this started. So you'll see I added in a couple of different diagram building type companies just to get us going. But in here, there's a bunch of different things that you can see, but you can see that there's tiers listed here. So, right, with ABM, there's always different tiers and different levels in terms of you going after these accounts and where they are in terms of like the highest ones that you want to get versus, yeah, these ones would be great too, but they're not like our big whales kind of thing. And then there's these agent research. This is new for HubSpot. So you can actually add these accounts in, right? Say they fill out a form or something like that. This account gets created for you. Your salesperson can come in and click this research button. And it's all of these different AI pulled in insights about this company specifically. So you can read through this. It'll give you a bunch of different things about when they were in the news last, why they were in the news last, different values of the company. So you can make sure to include that in your presentations, all of that kind of stuff. Great things come from this. But that's not just it. We now actually have buyer intent inside of HubSpot as well. So now this is cool in terms of like, as it's always been, the visitors that come to your website, you can classify them, you can get them added in, and you can get them set in your tiers. You've been able to do things like that for quite a while inside of HubSpot, but the research feature is where it's like super cool now. So instead of having to have a bunch of different people go out and get information for you in terms of like, which companies are actually researching HubSpot agencies? Which ones are actually looking at HubSpot? This all now comes into HubSpot. So this is super cool. This is where you guys get to see me geek out because I'm so the tech person. But you can set up different research levels and different target markets. So I just have a tech target market. I added in a couple of different keywords like SaaS, EdTech, health tech, fintech, etc. into this target market. And it brings in all of these companies. And then it also shows you, this company has significantly increased its research on HubSpot solutions over the past 30 days compared to the previous 30 days. And what's cool, it's in the target market that I created. And this one down here shows me that these are the ones that are not currently in my CRM as soon as it loads for me. There we go. So these ones are companies that are looking for the solution that we actually provide, are within the target market that we are going after. And I can go, do I want to open it up on LinkedIn to reach out to them if I'm a salesperson? Or do I just want to click this button to add them directly into our CRM, into our company section? It's cool things to make it in one spot so you don't have to go everywhere to look for this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So you add these companies in, someone goes out and researches LinkedIn or something for your buyer roles, right? Like, who's your main buyer persona here at this company? Potentially, who's your budget holder? And most likely, who's your blocker? Because you should always know that too at each of your companies. You're going to add them into the CRM, add in their email addresses, and then you're going to create a cool sequence that's based on those big whale ones or any of the others. But what's cool about this new feature with HubSpot is that you can keep doing automated emails. So your sales team doesn't have to do a single thing until they take an action. So until they actually like reply, 2 opens or a click into each of those emails, they stay over there in the automated fun stuff. And then you start to get the manual tasks that come out. So just like Jonathan said, this is when the actual human interaction matters. They've done all of this stuff. They don't realize that you are actually targeting them based on what they're researching. And that's when the human comes out. You can give them a call. You can send them a LinkedIn email message where it's actually personalized and not done by any AI or any bot, but it's at the perfect moment because you know that they've already been opening or clicking into your emails, they're researching your solution, and they've already been added to your CRM. So we do a lot of things like this, as well as we, enroll them into the target accounts to get all of that done based on things on the back end. This is the prospecting agent that I kind of wanted to show the 2 different criterias for inside of HubSpot. We have a couple of clients that are interested in this, but just like Jonathan mentioned, like we have so many clients that are like data first in terms of management and then AI. But this is just to show you like you can do them at the same time. So you can do a semi-autonomous or a fully autonomous inside of HubSpot when it comes to your prospecting agent. So it's not an all in or an all out. HubSpot's noticing that not everyone is like ready to go all in. So you can choose a couple of these. It'll ask you to review the emails before sending them, specifically research the context that you selected, all of this kind of stuff, just to give you that leg up. Or you can go fully autonomous and actually have them do everything for you and then just put a little disclaimer at the bottom like this email was written with AI, which is kind of fun. Last thing, this is all the sales side, right? This is all the prospecting. But to do a full actual ABM go-to-market, you also need to include marketing in what you're doing on the sales side. So we'll make different lists of the contacts that are actually included in those tiers, hand them over to marketing, so then they can actually create some emails, right? So then they can do their marketing efforts at the same time. Your messages are still aligned between the 2. But the cool thing is, this is with what's called smart content. So you can create one email for all 3 ICP tiers. Maybe you know that each tier needs a different case study at the bottom of your email to really drive it home for them. You can show them 3 different ones. So say this is for your ICP tier 1. This one's for your ICP tier 3. Notice it's all the same email. It's just a different contact that's receiving it. And then this is for your tier 2. All the same email, different contacts that get it, and you can still send them the exact same way. One workflow with a list that triggers it, and one email that goes out. This is why you should use HubSpot, because everything can be in one spot for you, and you don't have to go across different systems.
Yeah, that's great. It's nice to see like how companies can start to use AI and like slowly like crawl, walk, run their way into it, which is great. And then obviously the marketing and sales side is very nice to have like a one playbook that might have a few different automations underneath it, but is being very heavily connected. And cool to see some of the updates. We don't use HubSpot, sadly, so I don't know what the AI stuff going on in there.
Yeah.
There's so much more. This
I'm
is literally
sure.
scratching the surface. Yeah.
And as we go across that like full use case, there's other areas where even extending just some of the segmentation, the data that's being inputted into those target accounts in those segments to actually create them, and then how you can orchestrate it beyond just the HubSpot platform is very broad with some of those other providers in the space, like Rollworks and other tools out there.
Yeah, and like one of the cool things in that target account list option, like we do a lot of that of like these are lookalike accounts essentially based on firmographic data, but to add the research element into it is fantastic. And then that can go and funnel into your ads campaigns or your email outreach or anything else.
Yep.
So I have a follow-up question on the demo itself. What are the kind of output metrics that you normally implement with this process, Jacque?
I knew I would get to answer my RevOps answer at least some point. It depends. We can customize this to focus on whatever the company is actually focused on. It's something that we do figure out with them from the start. Maybe they are more concerned with getting more of those big companies that are focused in their target market into their CRM so they actually know who they are. Because we do have a couple that come to us and they're like, we don't really know who our target accounts are, but we know what they are doing or what they are looking for. So maybe it's increasing target accounts, increasing open rates to ensure, right? Like if we can personalize all of those marketing emails and those sales emails so that they're not so spammy and they're more specific. Maybe it's open rates and email health. Maybe it's meetings booked because you actually have that human contact when you actually need it and it's pivotal in the system. So we can do a lot of different KPIs and things like that with this, but we'll focus on whatever the company needs to focus on in terms of their main KPIs. But I can let Jonathan speak to that too.
I think it's across the pendulum, but I think it's, engaged accounts and then ultimately opportunity creation. Like I said when we were talking about the state of HubSpot, marketers are finally sort of moving beyond the MQL, which is like, oh my gosh, like little golf clap over here, and looking at sales opportunity creation and profitability, right? So really sort of helping organizations understand like, great, this is the universe. Like, how are we engaging those accounts that are most important? And then how are we actually creating opportunities and pipeline and associated revenue associated with those? It is still an evolution. And, based on the data last year, we saw it, the number one metric marketers cited were MQL still. And this year, that's not the case, fortunately.
It's becoming a little bit more outcomes based.
Yep.
And we touched a little bit, obviously, on how it helps sales and marketing teams collaborate. But are you seeing, we mentioned finance quite a bit. There are some of the things that you're doing within HubSpot really helping other teams collaborate with sales and marketing?
For sure. It's what makes HubSpot so unique because you don't have to worry about actually integrating the tech to then pass the data back and forth. The amount of times I have to have the conversation with clients, that aren't fully bought into HubSpot across all the hubs of like, okay, but what data is most pivotal to your service teams when they get a support ticket? Is it the account tier? Is it the last time they purchased? Is it their buying committee? Are they putting in a ticket, right? And like having to talk through passing that data back and forth.
Yep.
Instead in HubSpot, it's all right there. You can just see it when you open up the ticket. Everything gets connected. So it's for sure, it helps all the way across the board. And then with finance, it's the same thing. We can see all of the different invoices that can be created inside of HubSpot to tie everything back together, to show like true ROI on companies and not just have it in all of these different systems trying to talk to each other.
You ever have companies using a third-party tool and you get them to go and buy a hub instead?
Yeah,
You do?
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I nerd out like this in front of them in the sales process.
Hey,
and
it's
then,
a good sales pitch.
I mean, there'll be always a little bit of a limitation in these systems, right? Especially when you hand over something to other function like finance. I mean, finance likes drilling down and likes to get the answers right, but it has to be also in a certain format and kind of fits the process. So I think they can greatly benefit, and I can speak as a former finance person already in that data. I think the finance function, by the way, moved a lot into the go-to-market space.
Yeah.
From the Salesforce, and I know we shouldn't mention even Salesforce here in this podcast, but
That's great. Also, we're seeing more and more revenue operations leaders report into finance, right? And
yeah.
I sort of actually encouraged that in one of my previous roles where it made most sense. And we moved RevOps out of the revenue org into the finance organization. And it definitely has a lot of benefits there. I'll do a little plug for the State of HubSpot report for people to actually dig into it. Is we do go through role by role to highlight like the gaps, the weaknesses, the strengths, and the opportunities for each hub by each of the different roles that responded as well. And it's fascinating to see. Usability was definitely top of like the strength for most people.
Yep.
Like, I can use this tool to get my work done. But then things like scalability and reporting and being able to manage multiple business units and customization and integrations, right? We saw differences between the different functional units of who perceive strengths and weaknesses and opportunities.
Yeah. Very much the Apple of CRMs. Like it is a very easy
Mhm.
to use tool. And yeah, then there's has to be limits somewhere, right? But that'll
Yeah.
be cool to dig into all the various hubs there.
And that's the ecosystem. I think even more so now with how things are changing. I think if you're in an ecosystem where you have many different types of providers and technology partners who are all working to sort of create the infrastructure that's most appropriate for today's buyer's journey, right? That's absolutely critical. So it's not just the technology, right? It's the ecosystem that really is what matters for organizations today.
Yep. Yeah. And
Yeah.
HubSpot even like doesn't encourage by any means, but like they expect companies to grow out of certain hubs to some degree at some point
Mhm.
or need to add on to those hubs with other tools. That's
Yeah.
just what they've built around them.
For sure. And that's why they themselves invest in some of those other companies and
Of
those
course.
other softwares, right? They're like, hey, this isn't a focus for us right now. So we're going to instead invest in these other softwares to couple with HubSpot because we know where our gaps and limitations are,
Mhm.
but we also know where they're not. So you can start to see where they're buying
Yeah.
versus where they're investing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always a game of synergies, right? Where you haven't gonna get
Yeah.
more synergies that way or that way. So let's move into kudos and the industry round. So curious to hear your opinion about two, maybe more names or companies that are doing something exciting. So, well, who would you call out here?
Like I said earlier, I was on a bit of a road show. One of the organizations I was with was Clay. I think one of the questions that I always ask when I'm first meeting a customer is like, what are the signals? What are the things that would highlight that this organization or this individual is perfect or ready for your solution that you can really help them with, right? And I think where they're investing to bring data and signals together to allow organizations to really sort of identify that is pretty cool. And I think they're on the forefront of AI. There's just so many organizations who are thinking about AI in different contexts, right? Like Qualified with their AI-driven SDR, I think is interesting, and I don't think it replaces the SDR. I think it evolves that role to be much more human, and I think there's an interesting play there. And then Ask Elephant, right, which is an organization who's thinking through how can AI be leveraged to help make revenue teams smarter, better training, et cetera. And then I think some of the coaching softwares, they've been in the game for a really long time, but sales coaching softwares, I think the Gemini, the Gongs of the world, like how they're leveraging AI to save sales leaders a lot of time to provide coaching and insights to their teams is really amazing as well.
All right, Jackie.
Definitely Clay. I was at the same AI spotlight event that Jonathan got to go to. I've known about them for a while, but to actually like see it live and how it works with HubSpot data and all of that, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I don't get too cool about certain tech sometimes, but that one was cool.
That is the most called out platform we've ever have in this section. We need to
So
like give them an
crazy.
award.
Really?
Yeah, we
Ooh.
need to get them on the podcast for sure. But they are by far the most called out.
Good for them.
And I would say in terms of like where the gaps are with HubSpot and where you can use other softwares, PandaDocs is big. They do some cool stuff, especially like, hi, at the deep of it, they are an e-signature document tool. Like, not the coolest thing in the world, but they do some cool stuff with like AI that you can pull in based on the contact that's getting the proposal at the end to sign for the stuff at the bottom. You can pull in a whole bunch of different customization stuff, all with HubSpot, because that's one of the gaps of HubSpot. So PandaDocs is pretty cool. And then 6sense, right? Like, again, HubSpot does cool ABM things, but it doesn't do everything ABM. So that's where, you can really utilize 6sense in one of those softwares, and they're doing some cool stuff over there too.
All of these tools can do amazing things in their own domain, but I think all of them eventually will need to get closer to something, or move into the adjacent category. Like I think the Panda Dog example, right? They started in a fairly commoditized space, but now they're just, okay, we got to move it to something that is closer to something bigger, and we're just getting into that environment, right? So what are your top 3 tips?
Your final words.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, go first.
Okay. Don't feel like you have to clean up your data before you start to implement AI as a company, as a department, as an individual contributor for a company. That's a big one. The human touch versus the automation. I'm always the biggest proponent for automation when it's needed because I work in RevOps and operations. But this is the time for the human touch to come into play. Figure out what that human touch is and don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to actually look at the cool new tools that are out there. I feel like everyone gives new tools a lot of flack for trying to come into a sector that's already really heavy, see why they're different and see why they think they're different and actually give them a shot.
All right.
Jonathan.
I'll start with something that's been pretty consistent is now is the time to understand your buyer more than ever, right? Like, I'm not totally convinced the buyer's journey has changed, by the way. I just feel like the way that we get information and progress through it has been disrupted through the means that we can do our research, and we want to interact with content and information. And I think it's so critical for companies to just take a step back and just say, like, how has that changed and what does it mean for us, right? Like, it's so important. The other one is, for any revenue leader out there, like, create a culture of innovation and experimentation, but with guardrails, right? You need to highlight, here's the strategic direction we're going. Here's some guidelines to follow, but make sure that you're allowing your teams to experiment and to innovate within those guardrails, because if you don't, right, you're gonna get left behind and your team's gonna get frustrated, and that's the biggest risk that you've got. We're actually next week we're hosting a AI hackathon where we're gonna be having teams come together to sort of identify some of the most innovative, cool, and potentially company-changing AI use cases for our organization. When we launched that hackathon, we gave some guardrails of where we would love to see some of those ideas, right? But sky's the limit, and who knows what's going to come out of it. It could be the next big thing for New Breed next week. So excited for it.
Yeah, I love the approach. And the good points. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wealth of knowledge about all things go-to-market. And hopefully we'll have you on the pod in a year or so with all the new agentic AI cool things you're doing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you for having us.